I'm just driving home. This is a this is my very very good friend's car. I took him to the airport today, and just driving home, sitting on the 91 freeway in Los Angeles. Actually, I'm in Orange County now. I'm back right beside what do they call that, Knox Berry Farm off of the 91. The next big intersection you'll see here is the 5 freeway, north and south. We're doing all of 12 miles an hour. Woo, watch out. 14, 15, and back to 12. Oh, got a little bit of wiring to do when I get back to the house. So. Don't hit the other truck now. You want to buy Ralph's a new trailer. Not me, the big truck beside me was getting really, really close to that Ralph's truck right there. Oh, he backed off now. He's not even close to the guy anymore. Wow. I am driving in Los Angeles. Well, hello there. Can't even pronounce that. The car is self-driving. I still have to have a hand on the steering wheel. Whoa! Look at that. That was self-driving. It took off so fast that it knocked the phone down. There we go. But it's keeping the lane distance in front of me, and it's keeping the speed. Oh. Wow. So I have the speed because I'm in the center lane. And here, I'll show you on the dance. See, I have the speed set at 65, and I have to have a hand on the wheel, and it is literally driving, keep me in the lane. Pretty cool. And it keeps me right behind that truck in front of me. I don't have to, all I have to do, well, it's not, every time it speeds up, I'm going to have to lean the phone down like that. There you go. And what is that? Who is that? That is La Milky Man. Eyes on the road. Well, I have my eyes on the road, but the car's keeping an eye on the road. It has all kinds of cameras. It's just keeping an eye on the road for me. I get to look out and see things. Like, I get to look over this way and like, what's over there? Nothing. What's over there? Nothing. Oh, I guess I'll look forward. More interesting forward than it is any other way. But the car's driving. It's called HDA. I don't know what that stands for. But we're staying on this freeway for 25.3 miles to the I-15 South, where I'll be heading down towards San Diego County. Yeehaw! But that's what I drive in front of me. Is I drive an F-150. That's what my vehicle is. Leo the dog, the wonderful, wonderful dog. I had a dog named Leo, and I used to sing the Felix the Cat song by just replacing the name Felix with my dog Leo. And I would sing it to my son when he was very young. Go, Leo the dog, the wonderful, wonderful dog. And finally one day I thought, hey, I better sing it, Felix the Cat to him. And I sang Felix the Cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. And my son corrected me and he goes, that's not how the song goes. So I had to show him a Felix the Cat video. They ended up liking Felix the Cat and he watched a lot of their videos. Wow. This is the city of Fullerton in Orange County, California. And it's the next 3 or 4, maybe even 5 exits. Then we'll be in Anaheim for a small bit, which is a city with Disneyland in it. That's Anaheim, California. And then we'll be in, for quite few minutes, or just a couple minutes, for maybe a minute, we'll be in the city of Orange after that. And then it'll be Yorba Linda and Anaheim Hills through the Santa Ana Canyon. That's where those crazy winds in Southern California come through, and they call them the Santa Ana winds. Comes right down that canyon. It's really nice not having to, well, I'm paying attention. I'm not like not paying attention. But it's really neat to have the vehicle pay attention to the cars in front of you and slow down and stop and watches the cars next to you. That lets you know what's next to you and everything. And I had a 2020 Nissan Sentra, and that had active cruise control. And this is better because it has the lane control with it. So, yeah, we're not too far before, full self-driving cars become generalized. Not like the self-driving cars now and everybody's outsmarting them by putting cones on their hoods. This guy is going to come over, almost guarantee it. Guy, this is self-driving. Look, I'm not driving with my hands. And that guy just cut me off like that. Not realizing that he's cutting off a self-driving car. And here's the funny thing. He's by himself. I could see him. There's no one else in that car. He's got his windows tilted, so he's going in the carpool lane. Oh, I hate people like that. That's just obnoxious. There we go. When they cut you off like that, it does take away your the self-driving. Wow. Here we go. There's, somebody has a soda can in here, and they obviously took the pop top off of it and threw it inside the can because it's rattling around and I can hear it. My car sped up. There's Leslie's Pool Supplies. That's that van over there up to the right. We're still in the city of Fullerton right now. We went over. I don't want to be in that fast lane. I don't even want to be near that. This craziness is all get up. My camera's recording. Still got how many miles? 81.8 miles still we get back. And the next turn is at 21.9 miles. Huh. Yeah. Ramos car wash. Says something in between the car wash and his name. Ramos Mobile Detailing Car Wash. This is why self-driving cars aren't working too well. It's because people cut them off. The guy in that little white Cavalier, Chevy Cavalier, just totally cut off self-driving. You cut off a self-driving car, lady. Look, no hand. The car drives. Look at this. I'm not driving. Do. It's raining now. Well, moisture in the air. See, self-driving. Not driving. Look, not driving. See? It's self-driving. It's self-driving. You cut off a self-driving car. The car is driving. I'm not. You have to tell these people. They're just like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Most likely the X5 will cut me off. I'm actually shocked. 18.5 miles. Oh, we are now in a different city. This city here, this is Anaheim. We are now in Anaheim. Keep hands on the steering wheel. Miles an hour. Ah, 1-800 got scrap. Call it now. We got scrap. Dun, 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 dun. Aha! We're actually going against the traffic. The morning car goes down and takes out 5. They can't leave the parking lot to go pick up whoever they were going to pick up. Oh. I wonder how long we have. It says I have 74 miles. Okay. An hour and 28 minutes. 91 freeway. We're in Yerba Linda now. We're in between Imperial Highway. Remember the song "I Love L.A." by Randy Newman? He talks about driving down Imperial Highway. That was the last exit, Imperial Highway, and that goes all the way to LAX, where I just came from. Going down the highway. Hey, that guy's gonna cut me off. You watch. There's no way. Wow. Really? I'm shocked. Wow. You're doing a really good job right now. That was Yerba Linda Boulevard. The next exit here is the this is Jimson Canyon right after this. I used to live off of that years ago. Hey, we're 10 miles from the 15 freeway now. Pretty soon we're going to see a big cross off on top of the hill. $2.15. The neat thing is when they show you the dollar amount that it costs you to drive in the toll road, and you see it real low, like $2 or something. That tells you that the freeway is pretty much open, because the more jammed the freeway is, the more they charge to be in those toll lanes off to the left.
27 years old, he just got married, and he has spent his entire life working on, building, and designing cars and motorcycles. But now, they're just not fast enough. There's this new thing out, airplanes, and they can go even faster. So naturally, he's got to get him one of those. The only problem is building a plane, as I'm sure you can imagine, costs a lot of money, even back then when they would just buy planes. So where is he going to get all this money? Well, he's going to do exactly what any self-respecting man would do. He's going to go to grandma for a 0% interest loan. And when I say a 0% interest loan, I mean he goes to his grandmother and asks for a, and I quote, advance on his inheritance. Straight up, grandma, you need to fucking die or front me the money because I'm trying to make history over here. So grandma, being the gangster that she is, decides that she's going to give little Jeffrey £1,000 for his airplane project. Now, full stop. £1,000, you're like, oh, $1,000, that's a lot of money. No, this is 1909. £1,000 back then is equivalent to like almost $200,000 American, okay? Like, grandma is apparently loaded. So he gets all this money and he begins designing and making his own airplane. And after 2 long years, the day finally comes that his airplane is finished and it's finally ready for its first flight. So he hops in, takes his plane up into the sky, and everything goes absolutely perfect right until he crashed it. The plane is completely destroyed, and like every other speed freak and race car driver I've ever met in my entire life, de Havilland just crawls out of the wreckage and was like, that's fun, let's do that again. He then proceeds to make his very own aircraft manufacturing company. Fast forward a couple of decades, de Havilland owns a very successful airplane company, and it's the early 1930s, and everybody is beginning to make their planes out of metal, but de Havilland isn't having it because he thinks that making planes out of metal is dumb. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's basically like, metal weighs more than wood, which means that my plane is going to be slower by making it out of metal. Why on earth would I do that? To which the entire aviation community basically yells at the guy like, well, metal is stronger than wood, duh, and he's like, fucking, it's an airplane. What? Just don't run it into shit. It'll be fine. If you want strong, go build a tank. What are we even talking about here? Have you ever seen a fucking squirrel with knight's armor on? No, it doesn't make any fucking sense. So de Havilland's like, fine, I'm just going to have to prove it to these people. 1934, they're going to have the Robertson Air Race. It's 11,200 miles from England to Melbourne, Australia. You have to fly all the way there. You can take any route you want. You can stop to refuel as many times as you want. There's this huge cash prize of £15,000. All the fastest airplanes on the planet are going to show up and try to win this race. So de Havilland creates a DH-88 Comet, ends up being the fastest plane in the world at this one time, and obviously wins this race. And obviously, nobody cares because it's made out of wood, and they said that that's dumb. So nobody's going to learn anything from the point he just proved. Fast forward, 1936, post-World War I, Germany is starting to rearm their entire country. Britain takes note, and they're like, wow, we should build up some weapons too, in case they try something. So they put out a bid. They let all the aircraft manufacturers know that they're looking for a twin-engine medium.
There are police reported ahead.
Oh, that's fantastic. Look at that. There are police reported ahead.
Manufacturers flock to it and start putting in their bids and their designs for their planes. And pretty much all of them follow the conventional knowledge of how to build a bomber at this point in time, which was to have a humongous, powerful aircraft of metal absolutely covered in machine guns everywhere, because you need to be able to fire in all directions to fight off all the fighter planes that are going to try to shoot you down. And absolutely everybody follows that basic outline, except for de Havilland. He decides that he's going to build a plane using a completely different ideology from everybody else. Instead of having a plane that's going to have armor and machine guns and be able to win a firefight in the air against other fighter planes, he's just going to avoid the firefight altogether. Because at the end of the day, the bomber's job isn't to shoot down fighter airplanes, it's to deliver the bomb. He's going to get rid of all the armor, all the machine guns, all the defensive countermeasures that other bombers have, and use all of his efforts to try to get this plane as fast as possible to just be able to outrun the firefight. Because you know what's better than getting shot at and having body armor on? Not getting shot at. Realizing that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, he's going to make this plane as fast as
In
possible.
2 miles, take exit 51 for I-15 south towards San Diego.
So if you take the most powerful aircraft engine on the planet, the Merlin, and sticks 2 of them inside of this thing. And this aircraft is the fastest warplane on the planet. With a cruising speed of 325 miles an hour and a max speed of almost 400 miles an hour, this thing is absolutely untouchable, and that's not even the impressive part. It's the manufacturing process where de Havilland's idea stands head and shoulders above the competition. You have to remember, they're going into World War II. Plastic wasn't widely used yet, and anything that's plastic today was probably metal back then. Metal was used for absolutely everything from canteens to tanks to airplanes. All of it was metal, meaning that throughout the course of World War II, metal became extremely scarce, so much so that America was trying to built ships out of concrete, and Great Britain was trying to build an aircraft carrier out of wood pulp and ice. So being able to build a bomber out of a cheap and readily available resource like wood was a humongous deal. And it all trickles down from there, because not only are you just using an untapped resource, by using wood, that means that you're not going to have metal workers and riveters working. Time was a pretty much untapped labor pool, still doing other stuff like building cabinets and pianos. They had no real.
In half a mile, take exit 51 for I-15 south towards San Diego.
I feel like I'm in an infomercial. But I'm not done yet. Because the Mosquito's plan is not to fight firefights in the air, but to simply outrun them, you know what the Mosquito doesn't need? Machine guns. You know what you don't need if you don't have machine guns? Ammunition. And you know what you also don't need if you don't have machine guns? People to fire the machine guns. So you're also saving.
Take exit 51.
The Mosquito only has 2 crew members. And you know what all those things do? They add weight to the aircraft, like over 1,000 pounds, meaning that now that all that's going,
Continue for 3/4 of a mile.
an extra 1,000 pounds worth of bombs to drop on the enemy, which is actually what a bomber's job is. So just to recap, de Havilland has now delivered a bomber to the British government that is made out of a readily available resource with a brand new untapped labor pool that is cheaper in pretty much every way, and it delivers more bombs faster to the enemy. So clearly, the British government fucking hates
In a 1/4 mile, use the right 2 lanes to turn slightly right onto the I-15 south ramp to San Diego.
He's going to be able to feed their kids if he's out here trying to make planes that are cheap and reliable. I mean, what's the point of even going to war if you're not
Use the right 2 lanes to turn slightly right onto the I-15 south ramp.
a uniquely American thing for this to happen? So all the other aircraft manufacturers are talking smack about de Havilland's idea. They're saying
Continue on I-15 south for 38 miles.
that the wood is not a suitable building material for a respectable plane, and all this other stuff that they're desperately trying to come up with so that he doesn't win the bid. And that's when Lord Teeny Mittens, Beaverbrook over here chimes in. He's the Minister of Aircraft Production for all of Britain, and he just shuts the project down. I'm assuming it's because a giant model airplane would make his hands look even tinier.
I've got these tiny hands, and I'm gonna make them look even tinier.
In fact, the only person that even liked the idea of the Mosquito was the Air Marshal for the RAF, Sir Wilfred Freeman, who also, by sheer coincidence, is the only man in this conversation that has flown planes in combat and presumably knows what he's actually talking about and doesn't have a vested financial interest in the outcome. Freeman is also responsible for the RAF ordering the Spitfire, the Hurricane, and the Lancaster bomber, as well as the development of the Merlin engine. He's got a pretty good track record of picking amazing planes. So obviously we're going to listen to what Sir Wilfred Freeman has to say, right? Wrong. 100% wrong. What we're going to do is we're going to have Lord Bitch Mittens over here, fire him, transfer him to a different department, and then take credit for all of his accomplishments and use that newfound status to kill the Mosquito project once and for all. Because politics. And that's pretty much it. 1937, the British government told de Havilland, kick rocks, we're not interested, we're going to move on with our life. Fast forward, 1940, World War II has in fact kicked off, and it is not looking that great for the British because we are right in the middle of the Battle of Britain. Okay, if you don't know, the Battle of Britain, also known as the Air Battle for England, was basically the Germans were bombing Britain every day for about 3 months straight. Britain was obviously sending up their air force to fight back. Both sides lost thousands of people and thousands of airplanes. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you the RAF is now short a bunch of planes and a bunch of pilots, and there's really no way of replenishing the amount of planes because metal is extremely scarce, as well as the manpower to make the planes anyways. If only there was some type of plane that they could make out of an alternative material to metal that had a completely different labor force to build it. Oh wait, we've had that literally the entire time, we just didn't want to use it because of politics. Perfect. So the British government finally reluctantly orders 50 of them. So de Havilland gets to work right away, builds all these planes, turns them over to the RAF. The RAF then starts practicing with them, and the pilots absolutely love them. The only problem is they're a little bit hard to take off and land, which makes sense because they're basically a paper airplane with a fucking V8 attached to them. So the decision gets made that only the best pilots are going to be allowed to fly these things, and now we got to find what the first mission for the Mosquito is going to be, and it's going to be super secret because nobody knows that this plane even exists yet. So up until this point in the war, the British really didn't have a surveillance plane capable of flying over enemy territory and seeing what they were up to. So they were actually using their fighters, the Spitfire, to do that. And while the Spitfire is awesome, it sucked for this particular job because it simply couldn't hold enough fuel to go very far into enemy territory. The Mosquito, on the other hand, instead of filling it with bombs, we're just going to fill it with an extra gas tank, and this thing is going to be able to fly from England all the way to the Soviet Union and back in one flight without refueling, and that's exactly what it does. Yeah, the Mosquito is for all intents and purposes the world's first long-range reconnaissance aircraft that set the groundwork for every aircraft after it. It's basically the acoustic SR-71. So that's what they use it for the rest of 1941. 1942 rolls around, they're like, oh, hey, good idea. This thing can hold 4,000 pounds worth of ordnance. What if we just did one 500-pound bomb and some extra fuel tanks, and then we could bomb super deep into enemy territory? And that's exactly what they're going to do. Operation Jericho, a bunch of wooden wonders are going to low-level penetrate deep into enemy territory and deliver a payload. Probably saying that with a straight face. So a bunch of Mosquitoes take off to Norway. They are going to bomb Gestapo headquarters with 500-pound bombs. They fly all the way there above the ground and or ocean at like 100 feet, make it there more or less completely undetected, and bomb Gestapo headquarters. The only problem was because they were so low to the ground, they decided that they were going to extend the fuse time on the bombs because they don't detonate on impact, they detonate on a timer. So they extended the timer to 11 seconds to allow the planes to get out of the blast radius of the bomb. So they went ahead and they dropped the bombs. The bombs were a direct hit on the Gestapo building. The only problem was the fuse was a little bit too long, and a 500-pound bomb traveling at like 400 miles an hour apparently has enough force in it to go through one wall, through the building, and out the other wall, and all four of the bombs did exactly that, flying completely through the building before detonating. So the mission failed successfully. Did they accomplish their goal? Not really, but they did prove that the Mosquitoes were pretty much unstoppable and very accurate. So now they're going to begin using the Mosquitoes to nuisance bomb Germany. Every night they're going to begin sending out swarms of Mosquitoes to bomb Germany on their own home turf to begin weakening their morale. And with the Mosquitoes, this works for some reason way better than any other plane was ever able to do it. Like, the Mosquitoes rarely ever get caught when they're dropping bombs. So they're kind of like, okay, well, let's try a bigger bomb then. And the RAF starts using the Mosquito to drop the 4,000-pound blockbuster bomb on Berlin. They then proceeded to do that every single night for 220 nights straight, earning it the nickname the Berlin Express. And then somebody at the RAF finally puts together the fact that maybe the Mosquitoes are so successful in not getting caught on their bombing runs, not necessarily because it's nighttime and not necessarily because they're really fast, but because they're made out of wood, and wood doesn't give off nearly as strong of a radar signature as metal does, which means it stands to reason that they would have just as much success bombing during the day as they would at night, which, if successful, is going to be extra demoralizing because at this point in time, everybody understands that there's never bombing raids during the daylight because the fighter jets would be able to take them out immediately. But in the case of the Mosquito, if they don't get picked up on radar, nobody might scramble the fighter jets until it's too late. So the RAF, with their immaculate sense of British humor, realized that this is a very rare opportunity to troll the enemy that they cannot afford to waste. So British intelligence finds out that January 30th, 1943, the Nazis are going to be holding a humongous rally to celebrate their 10-year anniversary of coming to power. It's going to be huge. Hitler's right-hand man, Hermann Göring, is going to be there giving a big speech. They're going to put the entire thing out on the radio waves so the whole country can hear it. It's going to be a huge morale boost to the Nazis. And it probably was right up until the RAF sent out the Mosquitoes and bombed all of the broadcasting towers for Berlin, so the entire country just got to hear explosions, screams, and then the radio cut out forever. And then the British turned it into an entire propaganda thing, because not only are we hitting you on your own home turf in broad daylight, it's also in a wooden plane. So the Nazis are absolutely furious. They want to retaliate, so they ramp up air raids on Britain. The only problem is they can't really pull them off in daylight, but it is 1943, so they have figured out how to put radar in their individual fighter planes, meaning that the night raids are going to be far more successful than they ever were before. Or so they thought, because guess what? The British have a plane that's pretty much immune to radar. So they take the Mosquito bomber and they turn it into the bomber fighter by putting 4 20mm machine guns in the nose, plus another 4 Browning machine guns in the nose, and then send them out as night fighters, and they proceed to absolutely wreck the Luftwaffe in night combat because they can't be seen by radar and they have radar to see them. Then, after seeing how incredibly good the mosquito was at night fighting, the RAF had another brilliant idea. What if they sent out a bunch of mosquito night fighters to wait above German airfields and then sent out regular bombing raids with regular bombers? And when those bombers got picked up on radar, they would scramble the German fighters to go up and intercept them, but the mosquitoes would already be above them and literally spawn kill the Germans the second they got in the air. Not only did this work, it virtually shut down the Luftwaffe's ability to operate at night altogether, and the British were able to bomb Germany completely unopposed. At this point, Hermann Goring is sitting in his office like, okay, fine, cool, I'm fine. Okay, and you have to remember, Hermann Goring in World War I was a fighter pilot. He scored 7 kills in World War I, making him an ace. So, like, the whole aerial combat thing is, like, his ballpark. So the fact that the RAF is having a warheads on foreheads extravaganza and there's nothing he can do about it is driving him absolutely insane. And then you sprinkle on top the fact that he's over there with his superior German engineering and the RAF is just dunking on him and his men in what amounts to a Pinewood Derby plane. This man is about to lose his mind. So he creates a special division of the Luftwaffe whose sole purpose is to find and destroy the mosquitoes. Okay, they're already struggling in the war, and this man has now just cut out an entire section of his Air Force to do nothing but hunt down these wooden planes and try to destroy them. Needless to say, it fails miserably. So at this point, Hermann Goring's like, well, if I can't beat him, I've got to join him. So he orders his men to build him a wooden plane. And they straight up copy the mosquito. Like, so much so that they also call it the mosquito, but they just spell it with a K. Like, straight up, yeah, you can copy my homework, but make it look a little bit different. That's what they did. So they get the mosquito with a K built, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody, it's a pretty awesome plane. But then guess what happens to it? You're never gonna guess what happens to the German mosquito. A bunch of high-ranking Nazis, politicians, get together and they're like, I don't think a wooden plane's a good idea. I want big metal planes with metal armor and a bunch of machine guns all over them because that's the way to go. The same political BS that shut down the British mosquito 10 years prior is now holding up the Nazis. So much so that they don't even get their first test flight in until June of 1944, which is way too late in the war for the Nazis to begin making a new type of plane and mass producing it. So that's it. The Germans never really got their version of the mosquito. They ended up losing World War II. Everybody lived happily ever after. So I guess while it was dipshit politicians with teeny hands that prevented the British from getting the mosquito on time, it was also dipshit politicians that prevented the Nazis from getting the mosquito on time. So everything kind of equals out in a weird roundabout kind of way. In conclusion, the to have the mosquito at a glance might appear to be this one-off weird thing that happened one time during World War II, but in reality it is probably the single most important and influential aircraft in aviation history. We see all planes today are not built with the ideology that they need to have armor and machine guns in order to take a hit and return fire. At least most of them aren't. They would pretty much all much rather be so fast that they can't be caught or so sneaky that they never get seen. And that entire strategy was pioneered by a wooden plane in World War II known as a de Havilland Mosquito. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is to buy some merch over at thefatalobsession.com. Quack bang out. Also, the more I study history, the more absolutely positive I become. Okay, no, seriously. It's like the saying, oh, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Ha ha ha. Except the horse is somehow your boss that you're, for some reason, partially responsible for hiring, but also you have no authority to fire. And now the horse is like making all these amazing stock trades with top secret information that only the horse can know, which is illegal. But also the horse gets to determine what's illegal, so you have no standing to do anything about it, even though you hired the horse and now you can't fire it. Buy a shirt at thefatalnutrition.com. Thanks.
Fuck are you doing, fucking asshole? Fucking drive or what? Fuck you, gotta press the fucking buttons. P.O. the dog. Where are we going?
You know somebody's an absolute gangster when they're not an American, and I'm still gonna make a video about them. Today we're talking about Sir Douglas Bader, a World War II British RAF fighter pilot ace with at least 22 confirmed kills, and he managed to do all of that as a double amputee with no legs, which I think we can all agree is a pretty impressive feat.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. But first, a word from our sponsor, because this video is brought to you by PermaSafe. All right, here's the deal. PermaSafe is not the average set of rubber gloves that you've seen at the hospital before. These things are designed for people that work outside of a clinical setting with their hands and still don't want to touch something gross or something hazardous. Your paramedics, your law enforcement officers, construction workers, mechanics, farmers, anybody that's working a manual labor job where typical rubber gloves simply aren't going to hold up, you have PermaSafe. These things have diamond texture on the palms so that even if your hands get greasy or wet, you still have traction and you're able to grab stuff. They're also twice as thick and 4 times more puncture and tear resistant. Okay, check this out. Okay, look at this. That's like half a gallon of water inside this rubber glove right now. That's quality jiggling right there. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is what the Hulk's jeans are made out of. Oh no, now my hands are all wet from filling up that other glove with a bunch of water. Listen to all the traction and grip I still have with these goddamn gloves. And here's the best part about these. You don't have to go to a special website. You don't have to follow my link. You don't have to use my discount code. You can just go to Amazon. They are on Amazon Prime. You can order these and have them at your house tomorrow. And I know what you're thinking, but chubby electron guy, I don't need rubber gloves. Okay, listen to me. Rubber gloves are like jumper cables and condoms. You never need them until you need them. Just trust me on this one. Go to Amazon, buy yourself a box of PermaSafe gloves, keep them in your car, in your garage, and at some point in the future, you're going to be holding something absolutely disgusting in your hands. You're going to be like, wow, that electrician was right. This was definitely worth the money. So yeah, get yourself some PermaSafe gloves, because shit happens. It just doesn't have to happen on your hands. Back to the video. All right, Douglas Bader, born in London in 1910. World War I was going on when he was a child. His father and his older brother-in-law both fought in World War I. His father was an engineer, and his brother-in-law was a fighter pilot. Because of that, young Douglas knew that he wanted to be a fighter pilot too. So fast forward 1928, Bader's 18 years old. He just graduated from high school. He immediately joins the RAF as a cadet pilot, as well as going to Cambridge for college. And while doing that, he would become a star athlete for both organizations. While at Cambridge, he would play hockey, box, and become a star rugby player. Apparently, he was so good at rugby that it was believed that after college, he would join the national team to represent his country. And then for the RAF, he would end up playing on their official cricket team. I have no idea what cricket is, and I really don't care to learn.
Nobody understands cricket. You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
I mean, yeah, I thought Crumpet was the mountain that the Grinch lived on, so obviously I have no idea what's going on. Fast forward again 2 years, 1930, he's still going to college at Cambridge, but he graduates from a cadet to a full-fledged commissioned pilot in the RAF, at which point he becomes known as an absolute daredevil while also being extremely talented. He can pull off every aerial maneuver known to man at this point, including some that are so dangerous that they're banned. And not only does he do those maneuvers, he does them below 2,000 feet, which is also against the rules because it's extremely dangerous. But Bader doesn't care about rules. He doesn't care what you tell him. That's just guidelines. He's going to do what he wants. Because of that, he actually gets selected to represent his squadron at the Hendon Air Show in a flying competition, which he wins. Then later that year in 1931, he is preparing to go defend his title at the Hendon Air Show in early 1932, at which point he tries a dangerous maneuver too close to the ground, and the wing of his Bristol Bulldog catches the ground, crashes the entire plane, crushing his legs. Because of this, both of his legs would have to get amputated, one above the knee and one just below the knee. At this point, you have to remember it's the 1930s. He is told that he's never going to be able to walk again without crutches. And that's what they believe because nobody had ever done it before. But you also have to remember, Bader doesn't care what people tell him. The same attitude that got him into this mess by not listening to the rules is the same attitude that's going to get him out of this mess by not listening to what the experts tell him he's going to be capable of doing. Over the course of his rehabilitation, not only does he regain the ability to walk without crutches or a cane, something he was told was going to be impossible, he also regains the ability to drive his sports car, golf, and dance, all on dual prosthetics. And he managed to do all of that in 4 months, essentially by himself, because all the experts thought it was impossible. It wasn't like modern day where there's an expert that has a refined process on how to help somebody out in his situation. No, this man blazed the entire path on his own with no background in physical therapy. He just figured it out. So fast forward to June 1932, 5 months after losing both of his legs, he shows back up to the RAF like, hey guys, made a full recovery, let's get me up in one of those planes so I can take it for a spin, at which point they tell him, absolutely not, you don't have your legs, we're not going to let you fly. He then argues with the RAF, to which they agree that they're going to let him have a test flight with another pilot, and if he does good, everything should be fine. So that's exactly what they do. He takes the plane up, he does a bunch of maneuvers, he lands the plane, all with the use of his prosthetic legs, no problem whatsoever, because he is a phenomenal pilot. He then gets cleared by a medical board saying that he is fit for active duty, and he is reinstated as a pilot. Fast forward 1 year later, April 1933, the RAF, for seemingly no reason, decided that they were going to reverse that decision and ground him because there was nothing in the King's regulations in regards to a legless pilot. To which Vada's like, yeah, no shit, I'm the first guy that's ever done it ever. That's why you guys put me through all that testing and a med board to see if I could do it, and I've been doing it for the last year. Why would you ground me now? To which the RAF was like, don't really care. That's what we decided. Fuck you. Get out of the plane. Bada is then informed that he has to pick a new job where he stays on the ground, and Bada, being a man of his stature, isn't going to stand for that shit, so he retires early. From there, he spends the next couple of years collecting his military pension, working a desk job, golfing 36 holes a day. He also meets his wife and starts to settle down. Then, over the course of 1937, 1938, Douglas would write the Air Ministry multiple times saying, hey, if the next World War is going to kick off, let me know. I'm happy to come back and fly a plane for you. Then, fast forward, sure enough, September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland, World War II kicks off, and the RAF finally decides to call back Douglas Bada. So Douglas shows back up at an RAF base, and he is pumped because last time he was flying planes was 8 years ago, and they were like old biplanes like his Bristol Bulldog. Now they got Spitfires, they got Hurricanes. Planes have come a long ways in 8 years, and he is absolutely thrilled to be able to get up and fly one. And at this point, RAF leadership yet again informs Douglas, oh, we're not actually going to let you fly a plane. You don't have any legs. That would be preposterous. We thought you wanted to join the war effort and do a ground job just to help out. At which point, Douglas is furious.
I'm a peacock! You gotta let me fly!
Luckily, however, some of the people that Douglas had served with prior 8 years ago were now higher ranking officers, and they had some pull, and they convinced the higher leadership to give this guy a shot because he's an incredible pilot. So the higher ups finally agree to give Douglas a shot, but that shot entails him going back through flight school all over again, which he does, and after his first 11 hours of flying with an instructor, he is finally allowed to take up a plane on his own, and the first thing he does is invert it and fly it upside down at a low altitude right past all the instructors, basically giving all of the instructors the middle finger. He then peels off and goes and does a bunch of other maneuvers, and you have to realize this is the first time he's been inside of the cockpit of a plane by himself in like a decade, and last time he was flying a plane solo, it was his Bristol Bulldog, which is a biplane, and now he's flying a Spitfire. This is a huge upgrade, and he is blown away at how incredible this plane handles. He's able to take turns and pull off maneuvers way tighter and way faster than he ever would have dreamed of being able to do inside of a biplane. And initially, he gives all the credit to the new airplane and how advanced aircrafts have become. But then over the course of a little bit more training, he starts to realize not all the other pilots can pull off these turns and maneuvers as tight and as fast as he can inside of the Spitfire. They have the same plane. Is he just that much better than these guys, or what is going on? And then it dawns on him.
You ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dane.
Yes, I know that.
He realizes that it's all because of G-force, because when a pilot takes a turn or does a maneuver, they're exposed to G-force, and if they do it too fast or too tight, they're exposed to too much G-force, all the blood in their body rushes down to their legs, and they lose consciousness. Okay, you see where this is going? Doug doesn't have any legs for the blood to rush to. G-force is just Viagra to this guy at this point. Dude is literally the real-life version of Star Fox. Yeah, remember the Nintendo video game? You ever notice how Star Fox and everybody in his crew all have metal legs? According to the internet lore, it's because they all have their legs amputated to resist G-force more. In a weird twist of fate, his disability has turned into a physical advantage inside the cockpit of a fighter plane. He quite literally has a leg up on the competition. And because of this, a lot of other fighter pilots and high-ranking officers in the RAF start to not like Bada because they claim that he's arrogant and difficult to work with, because here he is getting told he's never going to walk again. Not only does he walk again, he learns how to golf, he learns how to drive a car, and now here he is out-piloting most of them. What an arrogant prick. Luckily, Doug doesn't really give a shit. He's not here to make friends, he's here to win a war, and that's exactly what he sets about doing. His first combat mission is over the skies of Dunkirk during Operation Dynamo. If you don't know, this is the operation where they had to evacuate the entire British military from Dunkirk. Yes, this is what the movie Dunkirk is about. If you don't know, basically when Germany took over France using their new Blitzkrieg tactic, they took over France so fast that the British army couldn't even get a foothold inside of France to start fighting back. The entire military was caught and surrounded in the city of Dunkirk, and they had to evacuate their entire army, barely making it out with their lives. And Douglas Bada was in the skies over Dunkirk in a Spitfire, running defense for these guys while they got evacuated. During this time, Bada claimed to have shot down 5 German Messerschmitt Bf-109s, but he is only officially credited with shooting down 1 and potentially damaging several others. Because every time Bada says that he shot down an enemy plane, it is extremely scrutinized because, again, a lot of the other fighter pilots in leadership don't like him because they think he's an arrogant prick. So literally every plane that Bada is officially credited with shooting down has been spotted by him, his wingmen, and an independent third party on the ground to verify that he shot that plane down before they would give him credit for it. But that's besides the point. Whether he shot down 1 enemy or 5 ultimately doesn't really matter because Douglas Bada and the rest of the RAF were able to hold off the German Air Force from bombing the men on the ground long enough for the entire British military to get evacuated so that they could live to fight another day. And because of this, Douglas was promoted to squadron leader and given command of Squadron 242, or at least what was left of it. We see Squadron 242 was a bunch of Canadian Hurricane pilots that had been stationed in France and had been fighting the Luftwaffe for a while, and they had sustained heavy losses and their morale was cripplingly low. Bada comes in as their new leader, turns the entire squadron around, takes a squadron in shambles, and turns them into an effective fighting force again, cutting through red tape and bureaucratic bullshit to get his men what they needed to be successful. And because of this, even more of his peers and the chain of command starts to like him less because he is sticking up for his subordinates. And to me, this is the most important part of the entire story because as this story continues to go on, you're going to notice that the more successful this man becomes, the more and more some people tend to not like him and try to trash his reputation. I have watched countless interviews of other people talking about their relationship with Douglas Bada when he was alive, and all of their opinions can be summed up into one of 2. Opinion number 1, he is a literal superhero. Opinion number 2, he was an arrogant prick, but even I can't deny he was a good fighter pilot. And oddly enough, all of the people that thought he was an arrogant prick were fighter pilots that were in an adjacent unit or leaders that were in an adjacent unit, because his chain of command absolutely loved him, and all of the men that served underneath him also absolutely loved him. To give you an idea of how highly his men thought of him, one of the pilots that served underneath him, Sir Alan Smith, later in life said in an interview about the time that Douglas Bada made him second in command for a mission, it felt like God had told me to come up and keep an eye on heaven for him. Which to me says everything, because I think how you're perceived by your subordinates is a far better metric of your character than how you are seen by the people competing against you for a promotion. I'm pretty sure you're wrong, because I read on the internet one time that somebody's grandpa met him once during World War II, and that guy's grandpa told him that Douglas Bada wasn't very polite. Jesus Christ. Okay, first of all, word of mouth 4 degrees removed is not a reputable source, so I don't really care. Second of all, even if that was true, let's put it into perspective. Your grandpa met the guy while he was in World War II. Okay, so at this point in time, Douglas Bada is literally a legless man in the biggest ass-kicking contest the world has ever seen, and he's winning, okay? The guy's probably got a lot on his plate. It wouldn't surprise me if he was a little stressed out and maybe angry sometimes, okay? Shit happens. Get over it. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked. It just really annoys me when people that have never met somebody go out of their way to shit on their legacy for doing something incredible because it makes them feel better about themselves. Anyways, moving on. All right, fast forward July 1940, Douglas and Squadron 242 are going to partake in the defense of Great Britain during the Battle of Britain, which, if you don't know, is a period in time between July and October of 1940 where the Germans essentially tried to bomb Great Britain every single day. During this time, Squadron 242 is credited with shooting down 62 enemies and only having 4 of their own shot down. Of those 62 enemies that were shot down, 4 of them were shot down by Douglas Bada. This would bring his career total to 5, officially making him an ace fighter pilot. Because of this, news outlets pick up the story and they begin to portray Douglas as the hero of the Battle of Great Britain, essentially using him for pure propaganda. Like, hey, check this out, Great Britain has a legless fighter ace, and he is helping to win the war against the Nazis. We literally have a legless man beating you guys in an ass-kicking contest. what's up? So now Douglas is getting all this attention. He's being used for effective propaganda, which is great, but it also serves to drive the divide even further between him and the other fighter pilots that already didn't like him, because now they're jealous that he's getting a bunch of attention for doing just as well as a lot of them did. And if that wasn't bad enough, he's now also on the shit list of the really high-ranking officers in the RAF because he had the audacity to back up his boss and friend, Lee Mallory. Basically, the standard operating procedure for the RAF during the defense of Britain was kind of like aerial guerrilla tactics. As soon as they identified an incoming bombing run, scramble a small group of RAF fighters that would go up and utilize hit-and-run tactics to shoot down the bombers. Lee Mallory, on the other hand, thought that they should respond with overwhelming force in a strategy that he referred to as the Big Wing. And this was essentially taking somewhere between 3 and 5 squadrons in one giant formation, like 50 to 70 fighter planes all at once and running right towards the bombing runs. And Douglas agreed that this was a good strategy, and he was a huge proponent of it. Ultimately, throughout the Battle of Britain, the Big Wing was only used 5 times. Of the 5 times that it was used, the men that flew in the formation said that it was incredibly effective and they shot down a bunch of enemies. The men that did not fly in the formation said that it wasn't as effective as they're claiming it was and that they're lying. So that aspect is kind of an unknown, but we do know for certain that planes flying in the Big Wing formation were safer because there's safety in numbers. That makes sense. They were less likely to get shot down. The downside of the Big Wing was that it took a lot of time to get that many planes up in the air and in formation, so response time was lower. So as far as which plane was better, aerial guerrilla warfare or the Big Wing, I'm not really sure, but one thing is for certain, using both of them multiple times had a beneficial effect, because the first time the Big Wing was used, all the German pilots were being told that Great Britain only had 10, 15, 20 aircrafts left, and they go out on this bombing run, and here comes 70 Spitfires and Hurricanes. It just fucks up their whole day. It had a devastating effect on enemy morale. And on top of that, now they don't know what the British tactics are. They have to both anticipate being attacked with overwhelming numbers and being attacked with a small, fast, responsive hit-and-run force, which made it very difficult for the Germans to plan their attacks, because now they had to plan for both overwhelming numbers and a fast, responsive force. So yeah, in addition to his newfound fame, people are also upset that he had the audacity to have an opinion of how to conduct aerial warfare, even though he's an ace fighter pilot, presumably an expert in aerial warfare, but whatever. Regardless, Douglas ends up getting a promotion to wing commander, and he is now in charge of 3 squadrons instead of 1. So then from late 1940 to August of 1941, Douglas and his men take the fight to the Germans, flying hundreds of missions, shooting down a ton of Germans. Douglas himself shoots down an additional 17, bringing his career total to 22, 6 probables, and a bunch more shared. But on August 9th, 1941, Douglas Bader would fly his last mission ever when he would collide in midair with a German Messerschmitt Bf-109. Somehow Douglas survives the initial impact, but his plane is absolutely going down, so he quickly opens the canopy and goes to climb out of the plane. But the impact has crushed one of his prosthetic legs, the cockpit, and he can't get out. So he's pulling on it, he's desperately trying to get out of this plane. Time is running out, he only has a few seconds left, and he says, fuck it, it's worth a shot, and he opens his parachute while still inside the plane. His parachute catches wind and rips him out of his prosthetic and out of the cockpit. He then attempts to evade German capture, hopping around on a single prosthetic leg. He is eventually captured and becomes a prisoner of war. Okay, now to be fair, technically we don't know for sure that it was a mid-air collision that he was involved in, because his plane was never recovered, and like I said, everything Douglas reports back is extremely scrutinized because leadership doesn't like it. And they came to the conclusion that Douglas made up the mid-air collision story because he didn't want to have to admit that he was shot down and bested by a German pilot. And their reasoning for that is that the German documentation captured after the war didn't show that there was any mid-air collision around this time period. Here's a caveat to that. The documentation also didn't show that they shot down Douglas either. So now the leading theory is that he was actually a victim of friendly fire somehow. Which, you know what, to be fair, as much as I want to have Bada's back on this one, if you take a step back and really look at it, it does make perfect sense, because what person in their right mind would take the word